survivors, and welcome to Survivor's Guild, the only channel that determines your odds of surviving 2012's Grave Encounters 2. So stay tuned till the end for your survival stats. I'm your sharp-dressed slasher turned horror host, Ghostfake, and today we are taking a look at 2012's Spectre sighting sequel, Grave Encounters 2. But first, go ahead and hit that like button like you were a YouTuber trying to get people to hit the like button on their videos. And beat the hell out of that subscribe button with a camera. And hit that share button to let everyone know that Grave Encounters really happened. And feel free to check out patreon.com/survivorsguild. For just $1 a month, you can gain access to exclusive content and stickers. And for $5 a month, you can enter to win a Ghostfake mask. If that interests you, then you can find out more at patreon.com/survivorsguild. Now, I hope you like finding old reality TV show hosts who have been missing for like 10 years, only to discover they've completely lost their mind, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Grave Encounters 2, written by the Vicious brothers, Stuart Ortiz, and Colin Minihan, and directed by John Poliquin, and starring Richard Harmon, Dylan Playfair, Stephanie Bennett, and Ben Wilkinson. Grave Encounters 2 is about a film school student who reviews Grave Encounters before going on an adventure to prove that Grave Encounters was real. We open up to a whole gaggle of YouTube reviews of Grave Encounters 1. Mixed, of course. We wouldn't want to only show the positive reviews before we get introduced to Alex Wright, a film school student who totally shit on the movie.
Grave Encounters, pass. 1 skull out of 4.
We then get introduced to Trevor, Alex's friend, and Jared, who we won't see for a bit. We also get introduced to Jennifer, who has a misplaced crush on Alex, who has a misplaced belief that he'll be the one to reinvent the horror genre.
I will reinvent the genre! Yeah, you are!
A day or so later, he gets a video comment on his review of Grave Encounters, depicting Lance from the first movie stumbling around in the dark, in the room with all the writing on the walls, from an account called Death Awaits 6. Guys, did the ghost just learn internet? Cut over to a movie that Alex is working on that has generic written all over it, and Jennifer in the starring role. When Alex gets a message from Death Awaits, containing the longitude and latitude coordinates of the psychiatric hospital that played Collingwood in the first movie. And when Alex does some research on it, he finds out that this hospital has the same history they claimed Collingwood had, even down to the caretaker, Kenny Sandoval, who, as it turns out, committed suicide in 2004 into the meat bank at deposit number 13. He then puts out a video asking for help tracking down the actors or crew that worked on Grave Encounters, who went on to do nothing else, as Alex starts believing that Grave Encounters wasn't a movie at all. Later, he gets another response containing a picture of young Shawn Rogerson, who played Lance in the movie, as well as a phone number to contact his mother. He, Trevor, and Jared set up an interview with his mom to interview Shawn. They sit down and talk with her, and she lets them know that Shawn is an actor on a TV show and will be home shortly, and she says that they can wait in his room. But when they go upstairs, they find that his belongings are covered in dust before Mrs. Rogerson's caretaker kicks them out. But as they are leaving, Shawn's mom says that Shawn will be back when he gets back from the hospital, and that she helped him pick out his stage name, Lance Preston, before we find out from her caretaker that Mrs. Rogerson has advanced dementia. And we find out that Alex skipped out on Jennifer's play because he's such a piece of shit and is completely obsessed with getting to the bottom of Grave Encounters. But in his defense, he makes some good headway discovering that the actors and crew that worked on Grave Encounters have either come up as missing or dead. Later, Alex flies to LA to try to interview Jerry Hartfeld. He gets to LA and crashes a music video shoot before Jerry has him kicked out by security. But once outside, Jerry approaches his car and lets him know that he'll talk with him, but not on camera. The next day, Alex puts on his best hidden camera and has a sit-down discussion with Jerry. Jerry admits to Alex that all the footage in Grave Encounters was real, and that he almost claimed bankruptcy because of the families of the actors and decided to cut together the footage and release the movie to recoup the losses. Alex tells him that he's not going to get away with this and flies back home. He shows his friends the hidden camera footage and then has a spark of inspiration, telling them that this is the movie that he wants to make. Part documentary revealing the truth of Grave Encounters and part horror movie. And we find out that Alex wants to go to the psychiatric hospital to meet with Death Awaits 6 to figure out the real story behind Grave Encounters, and he convinces his friends to join him. Cut to December 3rd when Alex, Trevor, Jennifer, Jared, and Tessa take a road trip to Vancouver, Canada to visit the psychiatric hospital. But before they can get out of their car, a security guard pulls up and tells them that they can't film here and they have to leave before he tries to take their cameras. They speed off and head to their hotel room to reevaluate their plan. Alex gets another message from Death Awaits telling them which room in the hospital to meet him in and to be there at 3 a.m. sharp. Cut to later that night, the group breaks into the hospital and sets up their cameras before Alex records an intro to his movie.
March 20th, 2003.
They kill a couple of hours doing a paranormal investigation of their own before they head to the room to meet Death Awaits. But they start getting frustrated when at 3:25, Death Awaits still hasn't shown up. They notice that the lone table in the room has a spirit board drawn on top of it and decide to kill some time with a spirit boarding sesh. They begin asking the darkness questions, and when they ask it what its name is, it lets them know that his name is dun dun dun, Death Awaits. Oh no, the ghosts have learned how to internet. Alex then asks a follow-up question, what exactly it would like them to do, to which its response is for them to film everything. Before the spirit overturns the table, the group takes off and finds a room to hide in, when the security guard busts in the door and apprehends them. Alex tells the guard that they won't be leaving without their expensive equipment, and he tells them that they can take it up with the cops, before they hear loud footfalls above them. The guard goes upstairs to check it out, and they hear a couple of gunshots and run upstairs to see if he's okay, only to find some of his equipment. Alex has them break into two groups to retrieve the cameras, but when Jared heads to the haunted window room, the haunted window does haunted things, before Jared gets thrown out of the window and into the meat bank at deposit number 14. Tessa finally comes around the corner to find that Jared is gone, and uses her horn to get the others to her when her walkie-talkie won't work. They review the footage and decide that now is a great time to leave, but when they follow their glow stick breadcrumbs, they are led directly into a wall, almost like the building is changing. Just like in the first movie. Oh, if only you would have known this building did this! The group carry on looking for a way out when they wander into the children's wing of the hospital, and a girl named Caitlin, but I just call her deposit number 15, into the meat bank, who offers to play a game with them. Aw, that's sweet. But this game is too scary for our group, so they run away. But as they are running away, Tessa turns down a hallway that turns into a wall when the others try to go down it, separating her from them. She finds one of their stationary cameras and begins documenting her deposit when the doors around her begin opening and exploding. She falls to the ground and starts getting dragged away by an unseen force before it pins her down and, I don't know, maybe crushes her? Crushing Tessa into the meat bank at deposit number 16. Cut back to our survivors where Alex is filling in the camera with what has happened so far, and figures that there has to be a reason for them being brought there, before ultimately deciding that there must be a reason why it brought him there, and why it told him to film everything. They wander around some more before they find the security guard on the receiving end of some electroshock therapy. They turn off the current and are shocked to find the guard is still alive. Oh, somebody call a doctor! But before they can free him, he begins getting electrocuted again. Ah, somebody call an electrician! And then he bursts into flames. Ah, somebody call the fire department! Shocking the guard into the meat bank at deposit number 17. Ah, somebody call a mortician! The group begins looking for another way out, when they find a window they might be able to slide out of. They begin breaking out of the building when Trevor gets grabbed by something. The something then climbs through the window and chases them down the hallway. The trio run out the front doors, and the creature follows them only to explode into dust. Oh, Jennifer, close your mouth. The trio run to their vehicle, passing a dead Jared on their way. They get into their van and drive back to the hotel room. They grab their belongings and head to the elevator. They ride down to the main floor, grieving their dead friends. But when the elevator doors open, they are back in the hospital. With his friends confused, Alex explains that this is what this building do, which would have been a good thing for him to tell them before they went there. They begin their walk through the service tunnels, and they eventually run into Shawn Rogerson, who tells them to follow him. Shawn leads them to the room where he's been living in, and they discover that he's definitely gone nuts. We here learn from Alex that Shawn has been there for 9 years, when Shawn thinks it's only been 9 months, which, no matter how you slice it, doesn't make a damn bit of sense.
You've been in here for 9 years, not 9 months, do you understand?
How in the did you get 9 years, Alex? The group gets a little rest while Lance cleans himself up. Later, they ask Lance about his drawing on the wall, and he takes them to see this big red door. A freestanding door covered in chains that Shawn believes is the only way out. Trevor recalls the bolt cutters that they brought with but lost in the building, which Shawn determines to find. He tells them that although the building is constantly changing, it does so in patterns, and that he has mapped them out. He then tells them about Dr. Friedkin, who through his rituals opened up a doorway and merged the spirit world with the real world. They tell Shawn where they dropped the bolt cutters, and he leads them in that direction, as the building continues changing. They find the bolt cutters and then ask Shawn what's next. to which he replies that they rest for a few hours. They find a room to rest in which Alex puts a camera on them in case anything happens while they sleep, which is exactly what happens, when while they sleep, a camera floats out of their bag and films them sleeping. These ghosts are creepers. And after filming them for a bit, the ghost drops the camera in the bag. Whoa, careful ghost, those things are expensive. The camera drop wakes Trevor, who gets up to go to the bathroom and to film a video deathery. When he begins hearing noises mid-memo, he leaves the stall to check it out, but he finds Shawn standing at the door, who charges him and checks Trevor into the meat bank at deposit number 18. Afterwards, Trevor's camera begins hovering and filming Shawn. Later, Alex and Jennifer discover Trevor's body, but Shawn is nowhere to be found. In the midst of their grief, they realize that Shawn left the map that he had made, and they decide to head towards the red door, figuring that that's where Shawn will be. Meanwhile, Shawn continues his slow descent into madness while the ghosts film him.
We might be a demon!
Before he turns it into Grave Encounters After Dark. Guys, I've made this joke like 3 times, and this might be the time where it makes the most sense. Anyway, Shawn, finds the door and cuts off the chains. But when he walks through the door, nothing happens. Shawn returns to the room with the writing on the walls, and the writing begins telling him to collect the tapes, and then he can leave, before telling him that it wants him to finish the film. Cut back over to Alex and Jennifer, who have to cut through the surgical ward to get to the red door. But while in there, they quickly hide in a closet when they see Dr. Friedkin's ghost nurses approaching with a patient. And after watching a patient get lobotomized and fighting to not make any noise, they then see another nurse pop up, aka Meat Bank Deposit number 19, since I believe that the other 2 nurses and the patient were the last deposits from the first movie. The nurse then hands a baby to Dr. Friedkin. Now listen, as a parent, there are some people that you just don't hand a baby to. Oh, he killed it, landing this baby in the meat bank at deposit number 20. Well, that's a mistake you only make twice. Jennifer, obviously surprised that they'd kill a baby on camera in this movie, bumps a shelf of glass noisemakers, catching the attention of a scary ghost nurse, who nurse ghost scares them, causing them to flee. They run to a closet that magically transports them to the red door room, before they get surprised by Shawn, who has gathered all the cameras, but he still needs theirs. Alex declines to give him the tapes because he's dead set on saving Jennifer.
This is my film.
Wait, what? Alex declines to give them the tapes because he's dead set on saving his film, and the 2 of them begin fighting while the ghost cameras film it. But in the middle of their fight, a giant portal opens up in the room, or as I like to call it, the most obvious way to end this movie, which immediately begins sucking everything into it. And when Shawn loses his grip, he backflips into the meat bank at deposit number 21. After swallowing Shawn, the portal closes, leaving Jennifer and Alex to figure out what to do next.
Just trying to finish the film.
Alex comes to realize that the building brought him there in order for him to make the movie, and now it's his job to finish it. He reminds Jennifer that only one of them will be getting out alive, and that she always wanted her death scene to be epic. And he proceeds to beat her to death with his camera, recording Jennifer into the meat bank at deposit number 22. He then tells the building that he'll make its movie, and that others will see it, and that they'll come to the building. He grabs his bag of cameras and walks through the red door and into the desert. Cut to December 5th, 2011, to a dash cam and a couple officers responding to a call about a creepy douchebag walking in the middle of the street, who they then take into custody. Cut to October 1st, 2012, to an interview with Jerry Hartfeld and Alex, upon the release of Grave Encounters 2, written and directed by Alex. Alex then tells the viewers not to try to visit the hospital.
Don't go looking for the building. There's nothing there.
We then get a flash of coordinates, and then the movie ends. So now, to find out, what are your chances of suffering survivor's guilt? This is where we take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your odds of surviving this movie. We start off our meat bank deposits with numbers 1 through 12 from Grave Encounters 1, followed by the caretaker Kenny Sandoval dying in between movies at deposit number 13. We then get Jared getting drop-kicked by a ghost out of the window and into the meat bank at deposit number 14, followed by Caitlin, the ghost girl no one wants to play with, at deposit number 15. Tessa then enters the meat bank when she gets crushed, kind of? It's not exactly clear just what in the hell happened to her, but it sure as hell landed her in the meat bank at deposit number 16, followed by the guard who just can't decide how he wants to die at deposit number 17. Trevor gets strangled into the meat bank at deposit number 18. That extra nurse settles her way into the meat bank at deposit number 19. This baby finds a new babysitter at deposit number 20. Shawn backflips his way into the meat bank at deposit number 21. And we wrap up our meat bank deposits with Jennifer getting her close-up by the hands of a Weinstein type at deposit number 21. 2022 into our meat bank. Now let's take a look at our survivors. We've got Jerry Hartfeld and Alex Reitstein, which means that out of a total of 24 characters, only 2 survive, giving you an 8.33% chance of surviving these movies. Given those odds, when is the next time you'll go get hunted by ghosts? Let me know in the comments below. I also want to thank my patrons for making this all possible. Chris D, Sackhead Ed, Bubba T, Max H, Macabre Python 18, Video Creep, Poppy Ulio, Valentina P, Mintrix, Brady D, Matthew, Vids for You, Mr. Nightmare Fuel, Maxwell the Kaiju Man, Lobotomite, and Whiskey. Thank you all so much for your support. It really goes a long way, and it means a whole lot to me. Alrighty guys, as always, thanks, and don't die.